Most people believe money was invented to make trade easier. That without money, humans were stuck awkwardly swapping goats for grain, struggling to agree on value. But what if that story is wrong? What if money didn't emerge from trade at all, and never really had anything to do with markets? What if money began as a tool of power? Understanding where money actually comes from changes how you see debt, inequality, banking, and control today. It changes how you understand who holds power, and why entire populations still live inside systems they never agreed to. Because the systems that control modern finance didn't begin on Wall Street or in central banks. They began thousands of years ago, inside temples. And once you see that connection, you can't unsee it. In this story, you're going to uncover why barter was never the foundation of money, how debt existed before coins, why temples became the first banks, how rulers turned accounting into control, and how the same logic quietly governs modern banking, inflation, and global finance today. The first truth most people don't expect is this. There is no evidence that early societies relied on barter as an economic system. Anthropologists have searched for it for more than a century. What they find instead are communities built on obligation, memory, and trust. People didn't trade chickens for pots. They remembered who owed whom, and those debts could last a lifetime. In early agricultural societies, survival depended on cooperation across seasons. Crops failed. Floods came. Storage mattered more than exchange. So communities created systems to track obligations over time, not prices. Not markets, obligations. As farming intensified in Mesopotamia, something changed. Surpluses grew. Land ownership concentrated. And temples emerged as the central institutions capable of managing storage, redistribution, and record keeping. These weren't just religious buildings. They were administrative centers, warehouses, courts, and accounting offices rolled into one. Temples stored grain, oil, livestock, and labor obligations. They issued rations. They recorded debts. And crucially, they standardized value not to enable trade, but to manage control. This is where money begins, not as coins, not as cash, but as accounting. Clay tablets from ancient Mesopotamia show detailed ledgers tracking how much grain a farmer owed, how much labor a worker had committed, and how much interest accumulated over time. These were not market transactions. They were institutional debts enforced by religious authority and political power. Temples created units of account to measure obligations. Silver was often used as a reference, not because people exchanged silver, but because it provided a standardized way to measure debt. Most people never touched it. Their lives were governed by numbers written on clay. This is the second truth. Debt came before money. Long before coins, long before banks, long before markets. And debt didn't emerge naturally. It was designed. As temple economies grew, rulers realized something powerful. If you control the ledger, you control the people. Kings absorbed temple systems into palace administration. Debt enforcement became law. Failure to repay could mean loss of land, loss of freedom, or forced labor. Money wasn't neutral. It was political. At this point, the story takes a turn most people don't expect. Coins did not emerge to make life easier for everyday people. Coins emerged for armies. Rulers needed a way to provision soldiers far from home. So they minted coins, paid troops, and demanded taxes be paid in that same currency. This forced populations into the monetary system. You needed coins to pay taxes. To get coins, you had to sell goods or labor into the ruler's economy. This is the midpoint reversal. Money was not created to facilitate trade. Trade was reshaped to serve money. The system worked because it combined three forces: debt, taxation, and violence. Temples tracked obligations. Palaces enforced them. Armies ensured compliance. This structure didn't disappear with empires. It evolved. Medieval churches inherited temple functions. They stored wealth, issued credit, and legitimized debt morally. Early banks grew out of religious institutions because trust, authority, and record-keeping were already centralized there. Modern banking didn't replace temple economics. It refined it. Banks still create money as debt. Central banks still enforce units of account. Governments still require taxes to be paid in their currency. And inflation still redistributes power quietly, invisibly, without consent. The tools are more complex now. The language is more technical, but the logic is identical. When modern governments run deficits, they don't borrow money the way households do. They issue obligations. Central banks monetize them. Ledgers expand, purchasing power shifts, and the public absorbs the cost through inflation. This is the final reveal. We do not live in a market economy. We live in a managed obligation system. Money today is not a neutral medium of exchange. It is a claim on future labor. It always has been. And just like ancient temples, modern financial institutions benefit from opacity. The less people understand how money works, the easier it is to manage behavior, control risk, and maintain hierarchy. The birth of money was never about trade. It was about administration, about enforcement, about power. And once you understand that, you stop asking why money feels scarce and start asking who controls the ledger. Because the real economy isn't built on coins or cash. It's built on debt. And it always has been.